You know what's even better than drinking a delicious International Delight iced coffee? Winning a brand new car to drink it in. Visit internationaldelightcarsweeps.com for rules and enter through November 10th for your chance to win a new car plus a year's supply of iced coffee. No purchase necessary. Year's worth of product awarded as product and coupons. Valued at $978.20. Open to legal residents of U.S. and D.C., excluding Alaska, Connecticut, New Jersey, Nevada, Hawaii, Tennessee, and Wisconsin, who are at least 18 in age of majority. Ends October 10, 2024. Sponsored by Danone US LLC. For official rules, visit internationaldelightcarsweeps.com.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Courage and honor, fellow gamers, and welcome to the Video Gamers Podcast. On today's epic episode, we're donning our ultramarine armor, loading up our heavy bolters, and entering the grimdark as we smash our way through swarms of Tyrannids and dive headfirst into the recent release of Space Marine 2. But first, some introductions are in order. I am your host, Josh, and joining me, he's the pinnacle of the Adeptus Astartes, the Calgar to my Titus, the chainsword to my heavy bolter. It's Ryan.
For the Emperor.
In the Omni Saya, right?
Something like that. I'm not quite sure. This is my new Marine voice.
Oh, okay, here we go.
I'm totally going to talk like this the whole pod, I swear.
Oh, no. This is changing already.
That would be way too much work.
Evolving into. Oh, man. Yeah, I had to do that for the courage and honor part because, you know,
of course,
saying that in my excited, squeaky voice just doesn't work. All right, well, welcome in, everybody. Today's episode, we are covering Space Marine 2.
Yeah.
I know that we were hyped for this game, Ryan. This game's been on our radar since the second we heard about it. We are going to break down all things Space Marine 2. We have played it. There's a lot to talk about. I know that you and I both have a lot of thoughts on this game. So we're going to get into it. But we have a little piece of great news, Ryan.
Oh, we do.
We have to thank a new rare supporter that went to multiplayersquad.com and signed up to support the podcast. And that is this fine person known as Lighthouse Bengal. So thank you, Lighthouse Bengal, for signing up with rare status, supporting the show, and making sure that we can bring it to the world.
Yeah, applause all around. Woo! Thank you. Woo!
All right, Ryan. So listen, if somebody else wants to be as awesome as Lighthouse Bengal, how do they do that?
Well, other than just, hopping in our beautiful Discord, the great community, come in, say hi, hang out. Everybody says good morning every morning. Awesome place to be. If you're not in there, you should be. Other than that, you can hop on to multiplayersquad.com. We have Patreon support starting as low as $5 a month. You get a lot of awesome, cool perks in the Discord I just mentioned. Early access to episodes, a lot of cool stuff. Again, starts as low as $5 a month. Really helps us out. Keep the lights on, if you will. And then if you guys can, hop onto socials, like, subscribe, do all that really good stuff on your Apple podcast or Spotify. Do that as well. Really helps us out. So get on there, and then it helps us bring you all this great, amazing, fun talking about crazy games like Space Marine 2.
Yes, definitely. So, yeah, again, that website is multiplayersquad.com if you want to support the show. You can sign up for a month. You can cancel at any time. We really do appreciate it, and we never get upset if somebody's like, hey, I canceled. We're just thankful for the support on that too. So, all right, Ryan, I touched on this in the beginning. We were hyped for Space Marine 2.
Oh, yeah.
I think we both saw it. We both were like, oh my goodness, this game looks incredible. I want to kind of just touch on that hype level because it's always fun to get excited about a game that's coming out. And man, have we had a lot of games coming out lately that I know we've both been very excited for. So I always like to kind of go into it with where were we at with it? How excited were we? Why were we excited? That kind of thing. I know for me at least, that I, going into Space Marine 2, had hopes that this is potential Game of the Year material. Way back when, and you can check out this episode, we did a draft where we each picked like a Game of the Year. We had a fake budget of $200 that we could bid on games that were coming out in 2024. And I landed Space Marine 2 because I was pretty darn confident that this game was going to be up there. So naturally, my hype level was very high for this game.
Oh, yeah.
We always mentioned it right in the thick of things like Black Myth Wukong, Star Wars Outlaws, Astrobot, the second we heard about that, Avowed, which got delayed, it was in that same conversation for all these games. So I know that's kind of how I felt coming into this, but where were you at with your hype level for it?
I would say the same. I know I was personally really hyped. August and September was wild. I mean, like you just said, we had Black Myth we were cracking out on, and then Astrobot, and then I had to bang through that to give you my PlayStation so you could rip through it. And there was a lot of hype for a lot of games, in the last few weeks, but this one was definitely up there. It's weird though, as excited as I was, it did kind of get lost in the mix for me. I don't know if it did a little bit for you as well, but next thing I know, I was like, oh, wait, Space Marine came out, and I was able to, I bought on, and you gave me a hard time, but I got the early access and was able to get in a little bit. I was like, I'm getting in now, baby.
It is weird that you mentioned that, because I do feel like it did kind of get lost in the shuffle of Black Myth Wukong, Astrobot. We didn't even get a chance to play Star Wars Outlaws, and we were very excited for that game to come out as well. So it is a little weird, and I don't know if that's telling or not. I guess people will find out when we get later on in the show and we give our thoughts on Space Marine 2. But I do remember thinking, like, these other games kind of jumped to the forefront, and then Space Marine 2 kind of took a back seat in the hype level, and we pushed this to play Astrobot first. Yeah. So, it's one of those things. So I guess, what were you hoping that this game was going to be? Without spoiling any thoughts on the game, I know for me, the natural thought was like, oh, this just looks like a really graphically impressive Helldivers 2.
Uh-huh.
I think in my brain, I just went, dude, are you giving me Helldivers 2 with killing these swarms of Tyrannids with these big beefy Space Marines instead of these kind of wimpy Helldiver guys that just get exploded, at the drop of a hat? Like, I think that's kind of what I was hoping for. So, like, before you ever even booted this game up, what were kind of your hopes as to, like, the kind of game it would be?
Something like that. I was thinking if I could relive that glory of kind of a dark, gritty game with all this new crazy tech, with the swarm tech and the beautiful graphics and cinematics and hopefully an awesome, intuitive gameplay, get the glory days of like old Gears of War, and with that flair of, liberty, and stuff with Helldivers. So I was hoping to kind of get that feeling again, especially with the multiplayer and being able to play cooperatives or do the operations and stuff like that online. So I was hoping to get some sort of feeling like that again, just that kind of, tough, raw, meaty feeling of just killing bugs,
Gears of War, I think, is the natural kind of comparison.
It looks like it, kind of.
It looks like it.
Yeah,
and
you're just
with
clunk,
the being
clunk, clunk, clunk.
And that's the thing. It's that heaviness for like the characters. And everybody kept saying, well, I don't know everybody, but I know our thinking was, and we definitely heard this, was like, oh, this is Gears of War mixed with Helldivers. Uh-huh. And it's like, anytime you say that, like, oh my goodness, man, you're going to get me excited about a game. I will say this is not like Gears of War mixed with Helldivers, and that's not anything against the game itself, but I do think that was kind of a common misconception. But I do think I'm with you in that, like, that Gears of War, just heaviness, the slamming into walls, the visceral, like, kills. I mean, with the Lancer gun in Gears of War compared to like the chainsword and the executions for Space Marine 2. I think it's a natural thing to think that. But I do think that these games are actually vastly different in that regard too. So not that that's bad, but did you feel that way too?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's its own game. It truly is.
All right, so let's nerd out a little bit, Ryan. We got to get into the nerd talk.
Oh,
all right?
Lore. Get into the lore.
This is a Warhammer 40K game. This is set in that universe. Do you know anything about that universe at all? Like, are you a diehard 40K fan that has just been waiting anxiously for this game to come out so you can dive into all that nerdiness? Or are you just a complete noob when it comes to that stuff?
I am a super noob. I haven't played any previous Warhammer games. I've never played, anything to do with Warhammer. I always thought it looked cool. I always was like, why are those dudes in these big giant suits? I thought it looked kind of goofy. I'm like, those look goofy, but I know people are really, really into it. If they love, if they love it, they love it.
Yeah. I do not know very much about Warhammer at all. Now, I am a fantasy nerd and I'm a sci-fi nerd. So, like, you mix the two together, and this definitely piques my interest. I mean, this kind of universe is right up my alley. I've just never really gotten into it. I know that, like, I have played Vermintide 1 and 2, which are both set in that universe as well.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of the Vermintide games. I think they're a ton of fun with people. But even having played, like, a lot of those two games, I still don't know nothing, man. Like, this universe is so big, and we see it a lot. I mean, it's kind of getting more and more mainstream with, like, Henry Cavill, for instance, has come out and said, like, he's a huge 40K fan. We have a lot of people in our Discord server that are really into it, people that, do the miniatures and all that stuff. I was a big D&D nerd, and whenever I would go to, like, a card shop or something like that, there was always, like, the Warhammer 40K section, and I was always impressed. I'm like, dude, this looks super cool,
These are
man.
cool.
Yeah. But the reason I mention that is we are going into this game not as fans or people that know a lot about the lore of the 40K universe.
Yeah.
So understand that our viewpoints of this game and stuff are coming from people that are not into the lore and are not kind of geeked out by the different factions that you do see in this game. Like, you do see the Adeptus Mechanicus, I think is what it's called. I think those guys look super neat, and then I kind of feel bad for them because I'm like, what have you guys been through, man? Like,
yeah, exactly.
You got all these weird robotic tentacles coming out looking like Doc Ock up in here, but I'm just like, you poor people, but yes, we do not have that basis. So, whereas somebody that is really into the 40K universe might really geek out on this. With how accurate some of this lore and representations and stuff like that are. Do you think it would help if you were a mega fan of 40K in this game? Like, I'm reminded of Hogwarts Legacy, right?
Okay.
Like, we played that game. You loved Hogwarts Legacy. You didn't actually play it with us at the time because it was before you were on the pod. But, going into that game, I said, hey, I like Harry Potter just fine, but I'm not like a huge fan of Harry Potter or anything. Like, I think they're great movies. I've never read the books, but I think it's cool. Whereas Paul was like, oh, dude, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. So, I think that's a good game to kind of say. In contrast, I think for Hogwarts Legacy, if you were a fan of Harry Potter, it definitely upped the enjoyment level for you, but you didn't have to be to enjoy that game either, because the game just kind of stood on its own. So, for Space Marine 2, do you think it's the same?
I think so, because oddly enough, I am a super Harry Potter nerd. And so having the contrast of the two, I know nothing about Space Marine and Warhammer and stuff, and playing that and experiencing not knowing the world. And then with Hogwarts Legacy, I watch Harry Potter probably twice a week, 3 times a week. It's kind of a go to sleep show for me, or movie. So I always have the movies on. So playing the game, getting to see the halls of Hogwarts and going to the courtyard and the garden and going to Hogsmeade and doing all those things that you know about in the show, you pick up those finer details so much more than somebody who doesn't know any of the history behind, the subject matter. So in Warhammer, I'm sure the people that are just super, super nerds about it absolutely loved it. Got to see such a graphically beautiful representation of, their little teeny figures that they battle with their friends. So I'm sure brought to life and controllable. They get to play it now. So traversing through that world, getting to kill the hordes, getting to be, the angels. So I'm sure they loved it. Same way I did with Hogwarts.
Yeah, I do think that having played this game, if you are a fan of Warhammer, this is probably an absolute must-play game for you.
Yeah.
Because it does seem like they are very true to like the lore of the game, the characters. I talk about the Adeptus Mechanicus. I didn't know what that was at first. I kind of very quickly figured it out. But there's even little things like, when you're in your base, there's these weird little floating cherub angel things, but they've got like cybernetic eyes and they're all just jacked up and stuff. And I'm like, I bet you there's somebody that knows exactly what the heck these things are and is nerding out over the fact that they're just sitting there like floating around, that kind of stuff too. So I definitely think that will help, but it is not necessary. I will say, having played the game, I don't think that that's a requirement at all. I think this game stands on its own two legs apart from, your involvement in like 40K or something like that. So
for sure. Yeah.
All right, Ryan. Let's dive into the game. Why don't you start us off by reading the official Steam description of the game to kind of put it out there for people as how is this game is actually described?
Heck yeah. So am I reading this in Titus voice or something?
No. No, probably would sound better.
I know, right? So Steam description here. Embody the superhuman skill and brutality of a space marine. Unleash deadly abilities and devastating weaponry to obliterate the relentless Tyrannid swarms. I keep wanting to say, what is the Helldivers one?
Terminids.
I
know, they're so close to each other.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it the whole episode just to let everybody know. But let me finish this here. Defend the Imperium in spectacular third-person action in solo or multiplayer modes.
All right. So takeaway there, you can play this game solo. There is cooperative and PvP options in this game. You and I did get a chance to play through a little bit of it together. I also played through with our buddy Andy. He and I actually played all through the entire campaign together. You and I did a few of the operations together and kind of checked out that side of the game as well. So just so that people know, we are going to dive into the gameplay, the graphics, the little bit of the story and the different modes of the games and stuff like that. There apparently are a couple big reveals in this game for people that are fans of the 40K universe. We will not spoil that stuff for you in that regard. So, yes, we're going to talk about different aspects of the game, but we're going to do our best to keep it spoiler free and definitely avoid any of those story spoilers and things about the campaign that really made a few people nerd out as like, oh, I can't believe they did this, or,
exactly.
they had this in there kind of thing. So that's your warning as far as that goes, but also kind of, like I said, the angle we're going to try to take with this as well. All right, Ryan, you bought the premiere edition of this game, so you got early access.
Yeah, bro. Did you see my armor?
I did.
I got that DLC armor, baby.
I'm a little jealous. I'm not gonna lie. But okay. So you boot up Space Marine 2. You see what I personally think might be some of the best graphics that I have ever seen in a video game. And I feel like I'm saying that more and more often lately, which really makes me happy as like a graphics nerd for games too. But the game kind of dumps you into this tutorial mission. It definitely is teaching you the ropes as like what it's like to be a space marine, giving you a little bit of backstory. You do play as, I don't know if he's a commander or captain, or I think it's captain, maybe Captain Titus. But listen, you play as Titus, whoever that guy is. He's definitely a tough guy hero character.
Yeah, he becomes lieutenant.
Lieutenant, that's right. Okay, also, I don't know what that is. Is that the same as a lieutenant?
Dude, I got no idea.
Okay, so see, there you go.
You know as much as I do.
But you are playing as Titus in this. It dumps you into this tutorial mission, teaches you kind of the ropes of, gunplay and melee combat, movement and stuff like that. What were your very initial impressions for this game?
Well, aside from what you already said with the graphics, just being utterly breathtaking when you load it up. I felt it took me a minute to really kind of get the controls. I'm not sure if it was a little tricky for you, but just kind of the parrying ability, the movement stuff, just getting used to that kind of slow, methodical, kind of clunky movement. Not that the game itself was clunky, but just, you're just this giant beast of a man running through, this planet. So I felt a little bit delayed on that getting into the flow, but kind of once you get through that, it's just the biggest thing to me, you know, and I know I said other than that, but the graphics, man. Like it was unreal. Looking around, you go in and on the tutorial, you start punching that flower head thing to open up that pathway. And I'm like, that was like the coolest thing ever. Just this first little section where I'm just beating on this flower and all these big things shrink down and I'm running through and that swarm tech is just something else, dude.
It is bananas. We're going to get into that here in a little bit when we kind of get into the gameplay and how the swarm tech kind of kicks in there. I will say for me, my very first impression of this game was just, oh my gosh, dude!
Yeah.
Look at this! Look at that over there!
Yep.
Like, I mean, we knew going in, we knew from the trailers, we knew from the gameplay demos and stuff like that this game was going to be a looker. But experiencing it as you're playing the game when you are controlling the character is always just so much more impressive than like watching a gameplay trailer. And I do remember thinking like, this game just feels gritty to me.
Yeah.
Like it feels heavy. It feels dark, you know, and I think that's what they're going for, you know, it's called the Grimdark, you know, in the 40K universe, and Space Marines are these just hulking like behemoth dudes. How long did it take you to realize that your Space Marine is like 8 feet tall?
A while at first. I'm like,
I know.
I'm thinking it was just the armor. I'm like, wait, this dude's just massive, giant man, you know, beast of a man, you know, running through there. It's the word I like to use is for these types is just weight. It just felt like it had weight to it. Everything you did had weight, even just the movement, you know, you clunk along, do, you know, trotting through the area.
Yeah, you feel like you weigh about like 1,500 pounds, dude.
Right?
Like you feel the weight of that armor. Again, your guy is like 8 feet tall. It took me a couple hours. I think it's until you get to like your actual base, or the battle barge is what they call it. And I'm walking around, and then I walk past like some normal soldier, and I literally stopped next to him, and I looked over, and I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "Dude, oh my god, wait, it's not you, it's me." I'm like 8 feet tall, man.
Why do they have an army of little people?
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that was my initial impression of this game was, wow. And then, oh my goodness, they really captured the weight, the grittiness, the darkness of this game. It is not a pleasant universe. Like, this is not a universe I think I'd want to hang out in, you know, and live in as far as that goes.
I don't know what
it's cool looking
union he's in. Like, what are his days off? You know,
I don't know. And then every single person in this universe is scarred up, jacked up, like missing limbs, cybernetics. Like, I'm sorry, people. I don't know what happened in this universe to make things go south like this, but you know, our thoughts are with you. All right, so let's actually dive into the graphics a little bit. I mean, we just covered Astrobot, and kind of the first thing we talked about was, oh my goodness, the audio. Yeah. We got to talk about the audio for Astrobot, right? And I feel like if we were going to talk about the thing that stands out with Space Marine 2, is naturally, first impression is the graphics, right? I mean, we've already said they're phenomenal. It's not only that the graphics are really good, but the vistas, like the different planets that you go to, again, no spoilers, but I'll just say the last level of the game is graphically one of the most beautiful levels I think I've ever seen in a video game. Like it really just kind of blew my mind. So is this the best graphics you have ever seen?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is tough, right? I'm asking you because I'm still trying to make up my mind.
I'm trying to think. I mean, because we played some really, graphically amazing games this year so far. And like you said, like we just keep saying, wow. And keep it up, devs. If you want to keep making games that look this dang good, I am all for it. I'll tell you that much right now. But it's got to be top 3 for sure of all time. I mean, it just every part of it. And I know even when we were running some operations last night, and I stop and I look up at the walls and they just got hieroglyphs all over them. And I'm just looking through this kind of story of hieroglyphs on a wall, just in this random section of a map of a mission we're running. And so there's so many points like that where you just stop and you look around. And I'm sure over time it kind of gets dull, but you know it's good when every level you play, there's spots where you just sit back and go, whoa.
I played this with Andy. We played the campaign together. And there were probably at least a dozen times when we were playing this game that we both just stopped and like looked out over a vista.
Dude, look at that.
I mean, literally.
Yeah,
and if I didn't notice it first, he would notice it. And you just see his character like standing on the edge of this cliff, and he's just like, dude. And then I would walk over and I'd be like, oh my goodness, man. Like, this is unbelievable. For me, this won't make a lot of sense to you, but for me, for people that have played Elden Ring is very similar in these monstrous vistas that the game has, where you just look up and you see like the Erd tree and you're just like, oh my goodness, dude, this is unbelievable. Space Marine 2 is like that as well, but it is so much more high fidelity in its like graphical presentation. For me, I think the best way to describe it is, I will say, it's not like the prettiest game that I've ever seen, but I do think that it is the most detailed graphics I have ever seen.
That's the word, detailed.
Yeah. Like, honestly, if you know, when you're in the battle barge and you see these Adeptus Mechanicus and you stare at them and you get close to them, you can literally see like the grooves in their little tentacle metal arm things that they have. You know, you can see the cybernetic eyes like glowing in their head. Even enemies that you fight. Like, you know, if you kill like an armored enemy, you can look at their armor and you can see like just scratch marks on the armor, and, you know, like where they've been shot, where the armor's been, you know, had pieces torn out of it and stuff like that. That is where it really, really is impressive.
Yeah, for sure. Even last night I was just playing around and I'm in the battle barge, and you know, you got your kind of jetpack looking things on the back with the, you know, the heat exhaust coming out, those little ports. So I'm looking and I see it's kind of blurry. You see like the distortion visually. And so then I start angling the camera and my guy to see if it distorts the character that's in front of me. And it does as I moved. And so there's so much thought and detail put into all these weird, just little things that all meld together to just graphically make such an amazing game.
Yeah, and it's not just like the resolution, it is the actual gameplay. You and I were doing an operation last night. You know, this isn't spoiler really, but at one point we knock over this, it had to have been a 100, 200 foot, just gigantic statue.
Yeah, that
you
was
remember?
Awesome. Yeah.
And this thing just slowly starts to fall, and then it felt like you were knocking over like a skyscraper, man.
Yeah.
And it was just so impressive. And then after it fell, the cloud of smoke and the ground shaking and the rubble and all that stuff was just, to me, it is probably the most detailed graphics I've ever seen. Like, I don't necessarily want to say it's the best looking game I've ever seen, but I'm with you. I think it's a top 3. Like, if you want just oh my goodness, technology has come a long way, this is definitely the game to do that with.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like you said, knocking over that statue, when you look back down, you see the bridge that you blew out, and there's like metal and rebar there, you know, realistically how it would look if that went through. So there's those details too, to where when things happen, everything you see has a purpose and there's a reason it's there. And it makes everything, like I said, it just comes together.
Yeah. All right, listen, we're going to move on to story next, but we're going to take a short break and then we will be right back. All right, Ryan. So this is the part where I think we're going to upset like the people that really are fans of Warhammer 40K.
Be nice,
because
to
we're going
us.
to talk about this story. And I know, listen, we get it, okay? If you know this story, this is probably like the most like awesome thing that you have seen and played and come across. But I'll be honest, man, this story didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, you know, we're not going to spoil the story, of course, but it's like, did the story make sense to you?
Honestly, I was following it kind of, but it was also kind of like, all right, I just want to go kill stuff and see all this cool action and explosions to me.
That was me.
It was like watching, you know, an 80s or 90s, you know, action movie with Arnold or Sylvester or something. It was just like, yeah, this is a story, cool, but let's get to the fun stuff, the explosions. Yeah, can you guys
quit talking? Yeah. Just go shoot people, right? That's honestly we apologize.
Yeah, we're sorry. We're sorry. We're ignorant to it all, but that's how we, you know, we don't know it.
Yes. And so again, if you are a fan, I think the story will probably mean a lot more to you. I did not even know. You and I were talking about this before we hit record. I did not know that Captain Titus is like a main figure in the 40K universe. Like,
Yeah.
I just thought he was just some dude that this game was like, focused around. So, again, there are villains that you will come across in this game. Again, we don't want to spoil anything because, if that's a reveal to people that know, then, we'll let that be a reveal. There are characters and planets and ships and all this stuff that I think would probably resonate with people that, again, are fans of this universe. And the story, kind of takes you through some of that. But apart from the 40K universe, completely separate from that, this story really didn't make a lot of sense to me. It was not something that enhanced the game, in my opinion. It gave me a reason to do what I was doing. But this is not anything that I'm going to remember as far as like, oh, cool. Like, this was the most like transformative character, thing like in Red Dead, right? With like Arthur Morgan, like that. It didn't have any of that to me to where I felt like I was invested in any of that stuff. Was it the same for you? I mean, did you feel like it heightened the game at all?
Yeah, I mean, there was parts of it where I'm, a cinematic section would happen. I'd be like, oh, okay, all right, I'm in on this. Let's go, and it would hype me up. But I didn't have that bond or connection with, the characters and the environments like you do in a lot of other games that are heavy story based. Not to say that I didn't like it, not to say that it wasn't well done or anything, but I just don't think that was the strongest part, of the game.
Yeah, you did touch on the cinematics, and I do want to say some of the cinematics in this game were freaking awesome, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless of what we know about the story or the characters or not, like there were some like very good cinematics in this game to where I felt like I was watching just a top tier sci-fi epic battle going on, and it's just a spectacle in that regard. So that's it for story. Like I said, for us, it didn't really add a lot to the game. Cinematics, wow, really cool to watch and stuff like that. But again, if you know the universe, I think you'd probably get a lot more out of that. And again, our apologies for not being able to geek out with you in that regard.
Exactly. And if you want to let us know about something, come hop into our Discord or something, let us know. We'd love to chat about it. And because it was interesting, we're not informed on it. We just haven't been part of that, universe.
I will say I'm fascinated by the 40K universe.
Oh yeah.
Like honestly. So, and as a fantasy / sci-fi nerd, I would love to actually know more about it. But it's kind of intimidating at this point.
Yeah, how old are these guys,
There's so many
man?
different factions. I don't know, dude. Like, there's these weird factions. I had to look up what the heck an Adeptus Mechanicus was. They're referencing the Omnissiah. You gotta, like, reboot a computer at one point, and they're like, we have to do the rites of regeneration or the rites of Mechanicus or something, because it's a computer,
I love how the computers, too, look like they're straight out of, like, the 90s.
Oh yeah, but with a skull just emblazoned on it. So, all right, let's move into the gameplay. This is where the heart of this game is at. Obviously, I mean, Ryan, we're freaking Ultramarines.
Yeah,
we're 8 foot tall, armor-clad titans of death and destruction. We've got scars galore. We've got weird things poking out of our foreheads that look like tubes or, I don't know, man, like cybernetics or something going on. We knew from the trailers that we were going to just be slaughtering hordes of these creatures called Tyrannids. Hey man, you and I, we're professional helldivers, right?
Oh yeah.
We know what it means to slaughter hordes of bugs, okay? So I felt like going into this, I was just like, man, we got this down.
Ain't nothing.
We're experts at this point. So let's talk about the gameplay of this game, because I do feel like there's a lot to talk about, but at the same time, there's not as much to talk about as I think I was hoping for in this game as well. Okay, so combat is the heart of the gameplay. Honestly, it's everything in this game. You are just you're a death machine. You are a harbinger of destruction, and these Tyrannids chose the wrong people to mess with, man. I thought this game was going to be nearly a pure shooter a la Gears of War. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get up close and personal, right? But
Yeah.
I thought going into this game that that's what this game was going to be. Did you kind of feel the same way?
I felt so too. I felt like it was going to play that way as well. And I think we learned that it does not.
It does not. No, I mean, and again, that's not a bad thing, but I was amazed at how much melee combat is in this game and how important melee combat is in this game.
That's the word. Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah. And so the reason for that being is that you are surrounded by hordes of these freaking Tyrannids. And if you are trying to just shoot these guys, you're going to run out of ammo real fast.
Yeah.
Like real fast. And ammo in this game is not super plentiful.
No, I was surprised by that too. I was running around when we were doing our operation. I was like, "What, dude? You out of ammo?" You're like, "Yeah, I'm out of ammo." And I was like, "I am too, man. What are we gonna do?" And so we bust out our swords or our combat knives and just go to town until we can find some. But it was very scarce.
Yeah, and so I would say that this game, whereas I thought this was going to be like 95% range combat with like that occasional 5% melee or like, kill move or something like that, I'd almost say it's like 40-60, like range to melee. Is that a fair kind of percentage? I mean, I know that probably sounds crazy to people, but like that's kind of how I played.
I mean, between that and then like your executions and finisher moves, your up close and personal melee there, and then you got other guys around, you might as well attack them, with the melee when you're, right next to them. So I definitely think it does have that flow of shoot a little bit of range here, and then once you get in close and you do your executions and you start going to town, that all that melee comes into play.
Yeah, I will say the melee is super satisfying. So this is not like a negative by any means. It was just caught me off guard as far as like how much that melee combat was important. I mean, if you think about it, when you are surrounded or you have a horde of 20 weird little alien creatures coming at you, you can spend 3 bullets on each one. Or when they get close to you, you can start swinging your chainsword and just mow through them like they are grass. So like it just makes sense when you're trying to defend yourself from these hordes that you're just going to whip out the old trusty chainsword and start just hacking away, man. The other thing in this game that goes along with the range combat and the melee combat is that they do allow you to dodge roll. Now, it does not feel smooth like it does in Elden Ring, but then again, you're wearing armor that is about the bulkiest armor I've ever seen on a human being.
Yep.
And so dodge rolling, probably not the most comfortable thing to do.
No. Surprised he doesn't keep rolling.
Yeah, I know. It's just like a roly-poly where he's like,
going.
Somebody stop me. But you can also parry in this game. And so for anybody that has played games like, the Arkham games, I don't know if Spider-Man does this, but like, you get a little flash, a little alert that somebody is about to hit you.
Yeah.
And then you can hit the parry button and then your guy will parry that attack. And that usually leads to you doing some kind of counterattack or execution move or something like that. Initially, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I can parry, but I don't need to do that. This is the shooter. But you quickly realize that dodging and parrying become pretty darn important if you want to actually survive in this game.
If you want to live. No, definitely. Especially when you get those. I mean, because they did a good job. They threw a lot of enemy types at you. So there's all these different kind of ways you can be attacked. And some of them are pretty tough. They can, come in with 2 swords and they can block and they can attack you. So you got to be ready to parry because they're quick. So they'll charge up on you. They bring the fight to you and you can't play ranged game there because they're right up in your face, and so you have to parry, you have to defend yourself and you have to use the melee attacks. Otherwise you're just going to get nuked, and so it definitely comes into play quite often.
Yeah, it really does. This is not tactical melee. So for you Dark Souls fans like me, this is not where you are really timing it and being well aware of like when you attack and when you don't. This is just swinging into the hordes for the most part, being aware of like you do need to parry. But again, they give you a big alert in that regard.
And audibly too. I think you hear like a me It's like a shriek or something in the distance.
And they do have it where it's like some attacks you have to just dodge. They have like a red indicator versus a blue indicator and stuff like that. But with the hordes on screen, the melee combat, the gunplay that you need to parry, you need to do this. This is chaos, dude. Like, honestly, there's
the best
just
way.
It really is in the best way, man. Like, I felt like I will say that, we played the campaign on the veteran difficulty, and I feel like at almost the entire time I was playing that I was on the verge of death, but somehow was still surviving, with like being 2 hits away from dying, but somehow just making that last stand and wading through the horde. You'd go down, but your buddy could res you and bring you back kind of thing. If you died 3 times, you'd have to restart from a checkpoint at that point. Let's move on to the actual guns for a second. I don't want to get too in the weeds on this, but the guns, in my opinion, felt meaty. They felt weighty. You do get different types of guns. You get a bolter, you get a heavy bolter, you get a sniper, you get an Inquisitor carbine, you get a something carbine. My problem is that almost all of the automatic weapons and the pistols in this game felt so similar to each other that it almost didn't matter to me. Am I crazy, or did you feel that way too?
No, that's fair. I was looking at it when I was looking at loadouts and then the weapon types. I'm like, oh, okay, this is plus, this is 4 damage. This one's 6 damage, but this has a fire rate of this. I'm like, okay. So I was trying out different stuff. It honestly, they all kind of felt the same. I just used, the bolt rifle or the auto bolt rifle, whatever one I had on me at the time, and it just felt perfectly fine. I was able to handle anything. The only difference was the flamethrower. You get a flamethrower at one point to kind of clear out a bunch of these little, bugs or whatever,
hordes,
little hordes, and that was different. It was cool, but other than that, it's just kind of a standard gun, and you didn't really need to change. It all definitely felt the same, kind of in that combat mode.
This is a part where I started to actually feel a little disappointed, because in my mind I thought, like, a shooter like this, the weapon type is really going to matter. And I did legitimately feel like there's probably, 7 of these different just guns, whether they have different names, and they're all automatic except for maybe the pistol, that kind of thing. But I just remember kind of going like, why would I use that gun? It's just like the gun I have. And so I remember thinking, like, why did they do that?
I don't know, especially with how much melee there is. You want the little interactions you do have with ranged combat using a gun to be memorable, to have feeling. And the only one that maybe was a little different, the plasma pistol was kind of cool, charging it up, but you can only do that for so long before you kind of get bored. The essence of it wears off a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, I was a little let down on the difference between the guns,
the variety of that part of it. Now, it does, you mentioned like a flamethrower, you do get some slightly like a wider variety of weapon, but they're not super prolific in that sense, right? And I mean, for me, I just went with the flame. There's this thing called a melta where it shoots out kind of like a flame blast that travels out a little bit. Once I found that, I was just like, dude, this gun's the best gun in the game. And like, I would just stick with that no matter what, but I do feel like they missed the mark. But again, maybe this is tied to lore, and so they can't, maybe that's just what there is, right? So it's like, hey, we can't give you these fantastical weapons because they just don't exist in this universe. There are a couple, I just remember thinking like, all these guns feel the same to me.
Well, we don't need them anyways. I am the weapon.
Yeah, exactly. and I will say that there are 4 different types of melee weapons. They do feel slightly different again. I mean, one is a combat knife, which is super fast and speedy, and then you get like a thunder hammer, which is very slow and heavy. But you're just mashing melee as fast as you can slaughter these creatures. So it's kind of, again, like, yes, there's a variety, but they didn't do much for me in that sense of the variety as well. So, okay. The hordes, Ryan. We got to talk about the horde tech. This is one of the coolest things that I've seen. It is a good part of the gameplay. I mean, you're going to come up against a lot of these creatures. In the operations, they throw waves at you. We'll get to the operations stuff a little bit later. There is multiple times in this game where you were walking your way through a level or something like that, and then it's like, here comes the horde, it's like you just look out and you see 1,000 little creatures just swarming along the ground and up a ledge or something like that. They introduced this very early in the game. This was freaking cool, in my opinion,
so cool.
man.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the first time I saw a horde just unloading, I think, every single bullet I had into the horde, and then they all made it to the wall, and they all climbed up, and then they killed me because I was out of ammo. And so there was this part where I was kind of like, wait, does it not matter if I shoot the horde? Because they always show that in all the gameplay trailers.
Uh-huh.
And then I remember like kind of being a little disappointed again, right? I was like, this looks really neat, but if I can't interact with this horde, like what difference does it make? But then you and I did an operation, and I kind of figured this out a little bit in the campaign, where this game does this neat thing where when the horde is coming after you, they climb up these walls, and if you were paying attention, you can actually shoot them off of the walls that they're climbing up. Anybody that's seen World War Z and the zombies like swarming up the walls of Israel or whatever it was, I can't remember the city they were in. It's kind of like that, man. Like there is a massive amount of these things. And so if you start shooting into them, you'll actually kind of lower the level of where they're climbing up. And that's when I was like, wait a minute, I was wrong. It does matter.
It does, yeah. I loved when they'd come up to the walls. I was always grenade on whatever sides, just chuck. And it was so cool to see just that little pot, because a pile starts and then they start like climbing on each other, like you said. And just to see a clump of them just poof out the side, and you see all these dead, guys going off, and then it does lower, then they have to build back up their little kind of wall or human ladder that they're making, or not humans, but little ladder that they're making to climb up the wall. And you can pick them off as they're there, and then eventually, you get overrun a little bit, and usually you've killed enough to get through that section. But it was cool to see the horde tech that they have, where with the swarms, the way they come, it reminded me of remember Jurassic Park, when all of those animals come running over that hillside, and that's what it's like. It's a huge horde. That's what it looks like. You see them in the distance, and this kind of falls into the graphics again too, of just how beautiful the depth is too. You just see these hordes way off in the distance running to another section of whatever battle's going on, and you see stuff flying across in hordes, and then you see the ones that are coming at you that you have to fight. So the swarm tech, the way they have done this is really, really neat.
It is one of the more impressive things that I've seen in a game. And there are times where sometimes the swarms are just decorative. You'll see a swarm of like flying creatures off in the distance, but this is where the kind of awe factor comes into, because it's not only the swarms that are coming at you and that you're fighting. And we've talked about the vistas and the how good the graphics are, but sometimes you'll just see a swarm off in the distance fighting an entire battalion of like humans, with tanks and lasers and all that stuff. And you can just sit there and watch for a while, and you're just like, dude, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yep. All those nonstop lasers, and then the bugs flying in. Yeah, I did that a few times, just stopped and watched a battle.
You feel like you were in this war. Honestly, I don't know that another game has made you feel like you were actually, like Halo is a good example. Gears of War, you do kind of come across those areas where you have allies that are fighting, but nobody does it like Space Marine 2 does, in my opinion, man.
Yeah, this was definitely standalone on that aspect of it. You have that weight of just, there's a battle here, there's guys here. Everyone's got their own kind of thing they're doing, and you can watch and see how they are fighting and then go about your part of the story. Well, this is still kind of going on.
Yeah. All right. So I touched on the kind of lack of the variety of guns in this game. And that's not to say that there's not a variety of guns. It's just that like most of them didn't feel different to me.
Yeah.
I think what caught me most off guard with the gameplay of this game, and I kept kind of waiting for it to happen, and it just never happened, is, to me, I kept waiting for the upgrades. I beat a mission, I made it back, right? We survived this crazy mission and these hordes of creatures, and oh my goodness, we escaped by the skin of our teeth. Our adrenaline's pumping, we're sweating, just like, oh my gosh, what just happened? But we survived, we made it back, and it's like victory, and then you're just back at your base. And then I remember thinking like, okay, cool. Well, where's my new skills?
Yeah, Mr. Skill Tree wants his upgrades.
I mean, it's true though, right? I do want. I'm a huge fan of skill trees.
Oh yeah.
But I kept going like, cool. Where's my upgrade? Right? Like, where's my skills? Like, don't I get a new ability? We should say every character, you play these kind of famous characters. And so you do have a triggerable ability. And if you play solo, you will have 2 AI controlled bots. You're a squad of 3, no matter what. The AI is not bad in this game.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I don't mind having them at all. In fact, I kind of needed them because they're great at rezzing you when you die.
They saved me a lot.
Yeah, which you will die. This game is not easy by any means, or at least not on veteran difficulty. But I just kept waiting for the upgrades. You know what I mean? Am I getting stronger? Am I getting cooler? Where's my new abilities? Do I get something else? And the only thing that you get as an upgrade in this game are the occasional new weapon.
Yeah.
But when the weapons don't really feel that different, unless it's a flamethrower versus a rifle, or maybe a sniper versus a flamethrower, I kind of just went like, that's it? You know, like, I mean, don't get, the game is fun, right? But why am I doing this if I'm not getting better in that regard? Did you feel that way at all?
Heresy, treachery.
I know.
Traitor, what are you?
I know.
Dude, don't let anybody hear that. What are you doing?
I'm sorry. I don't know what the...
What do you need? What upgrades?
Is it the
bro?
chaplains?
You're a freaking ultramarine, man. What do you mean you need upgrades?
I know. It felt anticlimactic to me.
Yeah.
Like to beat a mission, to get through this, and then not getting give me some experience points, man.
Honestly, I know you love skill trees. You know, you love the upgrades and progressing through. I don't mind that much, because to me, I get so locked up, the paralysis by analysis. I don't know what to pick. I don't want to pick the wrong thing. I don't want to not use the meta, and the right stuff, that deals the most damage and whatnot. So not having to deal with that, not having to think about it, and I just go out and I just kill swarms. I kind of like that. It vibed with me.
I get that.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I'm complaining about the lack of upgrades. We're playing the campaign, and it's like, dude, I'm the same guy I was at the beginning of this campaign. I'm not any stronger. I can't shoot lasers out of my eyes now. I can't jump. I can't double jump in the air. None of this cool stuff that I was expecting to be able to do. Beat the campaign. Say, okay, cool. We beat the game. There's these operations that are a major part of the game.
Yeah.
Right. They talked about it before the game ever released. They say, hey, I do remember seeing that they advertised that when you play the operations, there's 6 missions. When you play the operations, this is where you get to pick a class. Right. And then you can kind of play these different classes to find the kind of class that suits your style and all that. So I want to get into the game modes part of this, because this kind of fixed things, right?
Oh, I think it did.
I felt stupid, and I intentionally said what I thought, because I kind of want to bring this up to other people that might feel like I did. Okay. The campaign in this game is about 7 hours long, 8 hours long. It's not very long. It's impressive as all get out. I think if you are a Warhammer 40K fan, it's going to mean a lot more to you than it did to me. But I remember kind of like clapping my hands and being like, all right, I did it. I beat another game. And then, all right, let's check out these operations, right? And we get into the operations, and I'm like, cool, I get to pick a class. Dude, the operations are where this game is at.
It is the game.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
It is the game.
It is the
right?
game.
I mean, I don't know how I didn't realize this, because I was so focused on the campaign. But after the fact, if you pick this game up and you play this game, the game is not the campaign.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, as crazy as that sounds, for me, the operations were the game. And I said this to you literally yesterday when you and I were playing.
Yep.
But I said, I almost think this is like Call of Duty. You don't buy Call of Duty to play the campaign and then set the game down.
Yeah, exactly.
You buy Call of Duty because you want to play the multiplayer, right? And it's like, I feel like if you only played the campaign in Space Marine 2, it's equivalent to buying a Call of Duty game, playing the campaign, and then putting the game away.
Which would be unheard of.
Well, that seems like the craziest thing ever, right?
Exactly.
So for me, the operations are where I got my variety. There's classes. Guess what? Every class has a different ability. You get to level up these abilities.
Yep. I was freaking Thor, dude.
Yeah, you were. It's one of those things where it's like, I found this class that does this rocket kick with like a grapple hook.
Oh,
and if that ain't one
dude.
of the most satisfying things I've seen, man, but the operations, I think, are where the actual gameplay loop is in Space Marine 2. And I hate that I discovered it a little too late in the game. I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't play it more, but I just mean for the purposes of like this episode and the podcast, if I had only played the campaign, I would have felt very differently about this game than if I hadn't dove into the operations with you and played a lot of those and started to see like the upgrade path and how you can improve your guy and get these different perks and traits and difficulty levels and mission types and stuff like that. So the public service announcement from all of this is the campaign is not what Space Marine 2 is overall, in my opinion. And I'm pretty sure you feel the same way.
Definitely. And we didn't get, a lot of time on any PvP stuff. So we just mainly played the campaign and then operations. And I feel the exact same way. This is what made the game, and I love the way they did it, to where it's not just some random thing they just say, oh, go kill these swarms and whatnot. It's offshoots of the main campaign story. So when you're playing through the campaign, you're in your regular missions, you're running through as Titus, and this relay needs to get taken care of over here, and we're sending a squad to it. Well, when you run those operations, you're that other squad, so you're still doing kind of the objectives within the campaign, but you're not the main storyline, which is so cool because you still feel like it's a part of it. It's a part of the story, but you're doing something totally different. And then you get all these upgrades. You get these different classes you can be and different ways to attack and things you can do. So I thought this was such a cool part, and it takes the game from something that's just cool. That was a really neat game. I enjoyed that. That was a fun, 8-9 hours or whatever, to, okay, I want to play more. I want to get back and do more of these. These are really, really neat. Let's see what crazy mess we can run into. I know last night on our operation, we were moving a battery. So you have to charge up a battery and you run it along tracks, and there's these kind of swivel plates that you have to shift on this track to move it down the way. And there's swarms everywhere. Josh spins it, and then I was just standing behind it, protecting it, and then he spun it the way, and I was standing too close, so it started moving, and then we had to do the whole thing again because we had to move it back, turn it around, move it back to that section, and Josh is like, no, what are you doing?
You're going the wrong way! What? You're going the wrong way! He says we're going the wrong way! Oh, he's drunk!
And you were just like, I'm just trying to survive, man.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
I got 50 guys on me.
I got like no health, no shield. And you mentioned before, dude, getting so close to death. I can't tell you how many times where I didn't see any red left on my health bar. And I waited to do an execute, because I don't know if we mentioned this, but when you execute, you get back, based on the kind of difficulty of the enemy, you get back an amount of your shield. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to find an execution real quick. And I go execute, get a couple things of shield back, and then go from there and try to find stems to heal. But there was so many times I was so close to death. But the way these operations run is just, it's awesome.
It really is. This is where the game is at, in my opinion. If you're going to pick this up and play it, enjoy the campaign for what it is, but just understand that there is a lot more game to be experienced, and that does fix a few of the complaints that I had about the campaign in that regard. All right, listen, we got to take one more quick break before we kind of get into the end of this episode. We're going to get into our leaderboard rankings and a couple other things real quick, but let's take a break and we'll be right back. All right, Ryan, I think we've covered just about everything in this game. I do have a question for you. Lay
it on me.
What do you think stands out as the best part of the game, and what do you think stands out as the worst part of the game?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think for what stands out, it's really hard to look past the graphics. I think it's just like we said, it's top 2 or 3 ever that I've ever played. The cinematic sections, and then just the vivid, detailed colors and gameplay or look of the gameplay and everything. Not only just the environment or the area, but the movement, the combat is so fluid and beautiful. Everything you do looks as it should. And so that to me is the thing that really, really stood out. I think the weak point of the game is the campaign. And again, it may be different if we knew a lot more about, the series and about all the lore and the deep cuts of everything, but we don't. And it doesn't really cover a lot of it and doesn't give us a mountain of backstory to where we really know what's going on. So I would say probably the story is the weak point. But man, you just can't get past those graphics.
I'm with you 100%. I think that the world that they built in this game, or the way, I mean, I know that the world already existed, but the way that they represented this Warhammer 40K universe is spot on.
Yeah.
I mean, from the level of detail, the characters, the voice acting, I mean, even how the voices are different and how gritty things are in this war that you're in with the Tyrannids and that kind of stuff is so impressive to me without even knowing all the lore and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, just this world that they crafted, it just feels right in that opinion. And we've heard this from people that know 40K and they're just like, this is the game I have been waiting for. Like,
Yep.
Oh my goodness, this is the game. I'm a huge D&D fan. Baldur's Gate 3 to me is like what I think this game probably is to like Warhammer 40K people, right?
Yeah.
It's like somebody finally made a game that captured what D&D is and like the rule set and turned it into a video game. And I feel like this is what people have been wanting that are into that Warhammer 40K universe as well. And we've heard nothing but positive things from them. So I think that to me is one of the things that stands out. I will say I'm with you. I think the campaign is actually kind of the weak point of the game. And again, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's probably just that we don't know the universe and the characters, and we can't really get invested in that regard.
Yeah.
I didn't like that there were an upgrade path or that I felt like I was getting stronger. My only other, and this is a minor complaint, the combat in this game is really, really good. But there were a few times where I was just like, I mean, how many of these things can I just wade through?
Yeah.
The enemy variety is okay. Like, you definitely fight more than just the base, alien guys or the Tyrannid guys. And again, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a decent enemy variety. But I will make the comparison to like Helldivers 2, where the combat in Helldivers 2 never got stale to me, just because of the different stratagems that you could bring in and what would happen in between, one mission to the next. And oh my goodness, this happened and you friendly fired your guy or your mortar killed me or something like that. Whereas in Space Marine 2, there were times where I felt like the combat, even though it was chaotic at times, was almost a little too routine at the same time. Does that make sense?
No, that, it does. You kind of get into a different section of the map or of your area you're going through. You get a swarm, 2 or 3 elites, if you will, knock those out, right. And then it's kind of on to the next section. So it is kind of a rinse and repeat, with a little bit of flair here and there, but it did seem kind of repetitive as far as that goes.
Yeah, and I think that's repetitive is a good point. And again, it's not like a huge negative, but I do remember at times feeling like, okay, I've done this, like I've already done this. Give me a new creature, give me a boss, give me an upgrade,
which is where,
give me a piece of gear.
Yeah, which is where if there was a big variety in the feeling of the guns, then you could like change, all right, I'm going to use this now. And then that could kind of spice it up a little bit. But yeah, unfortunately, those all felt the same too.
All right, Ryan. Was this game what you thought it was going to be? We talked at the very beginning of the episode. What did you hope it was going to be? But was this game what you thought it was going to be? After playing it, do you look back at it and go, yeah? Or is it like, dude, I didn't know. This is way different than what I thought I was getting myself into.
Kind of both. I think it was. Go ahead.
I was going to say maybe a better question is, what's a game that this game is like? Right? Like in that regard, like if somebody's like, okay, cool. Like I'm not into 40K. Like I don't play a ton of like these weird horde melee combat shooter things. Cause the Helldivers 2 is the only other one out there. Like maybe unless you're getting into like Left 4 Dead or something like that. But like, give me what's this game like? Give me another game to compare it to.
It's hard. It's almost kind of like with the amount of melee you have, you do kind of get almost like a God of War vibe where you're going in and you're killing kind of groups, but then it's huge swarms. So, it's a little different. You're not battling kind of just 2 or 3 enemies at a time. So it's a hard, I was trying to think yesterday of what a good comparison would be, but I was having a little trouble. What did you come up with?
It's tough because the reason that this question came up is Paul actually hopped in and watched us play a little bit last night, and that was his first question, right? He's like, wow, this game looks really good. Okay, yeah, and then he said, okay, so what's this? Give me another game that this game is like, and we kind of both went. I mean, it's not Helldivers. Yeah, it's not Helldivers mixed with Gears of War, which is what we initially thought. It's kind of like a Halo campaign in a way.
Yeah.
Where you are just kind of, it's linear. You're kind of moving from point A to point B and shooting a lot of things as you go along. He said, is it like Left 4 Dead? And I kind of went, no, because yes, you are fighting hordes, but you don't have the kind of special creatures like you have in Left 4 Dead, and you're not scavenging for anything other than ammo. And I just kind of went, huh?
Yeah. What is it?
I don't know. I would say this is probably equivalent to like a Halo campaign. That's honestly like the best thing I could say, but with less variety. There's no vehicles. There's not, I mean, the levels and the vistas are awesome, but a lot of this just takes place in like these rundown cities with crumbling buildings or like metal complexes and stuff like that.
Kind of like Halo Gears. Kind of like maybe little bit of splash of Gears.
Maybe just the heaviness. I don't know. That's kind of the point, right?
Yeah,
I don't know what this game is like. It's like Space Marine 2, I guess.
Yeah, it is. That's what it's like. It's like Space Marine 2.
Yeah, I would say probably if I had to, if you're forcing me to pick something, I would say this is like Halo meets Left 4 Dead. That's in fair. My opinion. Yeah. You're fighting these hordes, you're trying to survive, but you have this kind of story-driven campaign that you're doing. I do not think the campaign of Space Marine 2 is even close to Halo, in my opinion. I think Halo has a fantastic story. Then again, they've had multiple games to kind of flesh that out too, so maybe that's not a fair comparison. But that's the closest comp I got.
Yeah, I'll take that one too.
All right, Ryan. That's it, man. We've covered everything we can cover, I think, about Space Marine 2. It is time to find out what we actually thought about this game. So we're going to go to our leaderboard. We're going to rank it. Do you know where you're going to rank this? Was this a hard choice for you? Did you have to kind of think it over, or was this like an easy one for you?
Easy in kind of a range.
Yeah, that was me.
It's my score itself has been very fluid on every minute I think about it. So it's going up and down. I guess let's get to it. What's my score going to be? I think this game is graphically beautiful. It's breathtaking. One of the best I've ever played. I think the combat was great. Doing it in a group as co-op or doing the operations is what really saved it for me. Not that I wouldn't have liked it just from the campaign, but those aspects give you that wow or those moments when crazy stuff happens that really kind of make it to that next tier. So I'm going to put this pretty high up. It's not way up there, but I'm going to put this as a 8.9.
8.9. All right. That's pretty high up there, man.
Yeah, it's pretty up. And with the operations, that's what really brought it up there. I don't think because of the lacking length of a campaign and the depth of a real, kind of gripping story that really makes you feel when a guy dies or something happens throughout. That would have got it into the 9s if it was really up there. But without that, I'm gonna say an 8.9. It is a fantastic game. I would say absolutely check it out if you love shooters, if you love games of this ilk, and I guess this is kind of standalone, like we said, but it is definitely highly recommended from me.
8.9 puts it in the exact same range as Risk of Rain 2, Satisfactory, Diablo 4, X-Defiant, and Fortnite for you.
Yep. Yeah.
I see a trend in those games, Ryan, and you and I are literally thinking, even though my score is slightly different than yours, I think we're looking at this game exactly the same way. I am going to rate this game an 8.6.
Nice.
Which for me is going to put this game into the exact same tier as Diablo 4, Halo Infinite, Splitgate, Demio, Dead Island 2, and a few other games. The reason for that is the games that I just mentioned are all a ton of fun to play.
Yep.
I do find them to be rather shallow in a grand scheme of things, but they're just fun games, man.
Yeah.
Like Dead Island 2, you do nothing but slaughter zombies, and it's some of the most stupid fun that you could have in a video game. I recommend Dead Island 2 to people all the time, because it's like, dude, if you want to just have a good time, perfect game. Space Marine 2 is exactly that. If you want to just have a good time, be impressed by what you're doing, have those kind of jaw-dropping moments, this is it, man.
Yeah.
Like,
you got 30, 40 minutes. Hey, dude, you want to get on an operation real quick? Hop on,
right.
And you're going to have a blast.
Yeah, and I do feel like there is a shallowness. Now, I know that there is more to the operations, and it's like, I know that there are little things that you can come across, but I think the majority of people are probably not going to realize that. Like, you know, shout out to Disratory, but he was talking about this game, and he was like, dude, it's really cool that the executions are different if you're behind the creature or in front of the creature, you know, and you can parry, but then you have a perfect parry that can happen. So there are mechanics that go a little bit deeper, but I'm not that into this game for those things to matter to me. Like, I'm your average gamer that just bought this game because I was hyped for it. I played it. This is the experience I had with it, you know, in that regard, but it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's just a fun slaughter things. Be this 8-foot incredible Space Marine dude. Play this campaign that has some bananas moments. Pick your jaw up off your desk, because some of the graphics in this game are absolutely mind-blowing. And then you're going to kind of just put it away. Yeah. You know, like we'll probably do another operation or two, you know, but it's like, you could spend a lot of time on those, but for me, those would get repetitive after a while. I know that you can step up in difficulty and increase the challenge and all that stuff, but that just doesn't interest me that much.
Yeah,
but it's
fair.
just a fun game. And so I'm ranking it with other games that are just fun to play. So I think if you go into it looking for that, you're going to enjoy this and have no issues with it whatsoever.
Yeah, that's 2 solid scores, I'd say.
Yeah, 8.6 and 8.9 are pretty high up there, to be honest. And I mean, like I said, when we're ranking this in the likes of like Diablo 4, you know, Dead Island 2, Halo Infinite, and some of these other, that's an easy recommendation from us. So, all right, well, listen, that is it for us. We've gone a little bit long, but hey, you know, if you like Space Marine 2 or Warhammer, I'm sure you don't mind at all. As a quick reminder, please remember to follow the podcast in your podcast app. It's a plus in Apple, a follow on Spotify, or whatever it is, but that way you make sure that you get notified of our new episodes. If you liked this episode and you want more like it, remember to leave us a review. If you know, you can rate us 5 stars on Apple, you can leave us a written review, but reviews are what help people find the show, and that keeps us going as well. And remember to follow us on socials at Video Gamers Pod. On all social platforms, we post, you know, articles, game reviews, lots of stuff like that. It's just a good place to keep up with us as well. And don't forget to come and join our Discord server. That link is in the episode description. Dude, we had like 8 new people join in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
And it's awesome, man. I love the gaming conversation. It is a fantastic community. There's no toxicity at all. There's no politics. There's none of that stuff that gamers get sick of. This is just a community of people that love games and love talking about games. So don't be afraid to jump in there. You're more than welcome to lurk, but we love building that community as well. All right, that's it. We will be back in a few days with another episode. Ryan, there's rumor that maybe it's a Force a Friend episode coming up.
Maybe?
We'll see.
Oh, that would be nice.
No promises, but it might be time, buddy. So, all right, well, listen, until next time, happy gaming, everybody.
For the Emperor. See ya.
Courage and honor.